Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Solo to Entrepreneur Show. You're with me, Lorraine, the host, and I'm your business strategist coach. We're here to help solo entrepreneurs through the journey in their transformation into a confident entrepreneur. Now, in regards to the journey, there are a lot of ways that we can come around it. And today we'll be looking into the whole concept of what used to work back in the day and bringing it forward to today's day and age, especially when you hear all these speakers out there talking about the same message, but in actual fact, this message was all backtracked to back in the olden days, as they say. I have with me Mark at the moment, who used to be a martial arts competitor. Am I right to say, Mark?
That is correct. That is correct. I'm still practicing, but no longer competing.
Yeah. So tell us more about yourself, Mark. So, like, just reading about Mark and knowing about Mark, it's really unbelievable. But I think he can share. I think he would do more justice in terms of telling us about more about himself.
See if I can do this in 2 minutes or less, shall I? So I've been self-employed for 25 years. I studied science at university, finished that in the mid-90s, which was when the real IT boom was starting to gather momentum. So I left that to start an IT company 1999. And that was the first 2 or 3 years as a solopreneur, then getting a bit more entrepreneurial in terms of forming networks, optimizing the business. Started developing software in India in 2004. Next week, I go back there for my 30th visit. Since then, so I've been developing software in India since then. Developed some really good business partnerships with some Indian companies. One family in particular, we built up a really fantastic travel business, which unfortunately my part of didn't survive through the pandemic, unfortunately, which is a bit of a
Mm.
bummer. But through that, as these things happen, that began really consolidating and focusing my interest on all things mental fitness, initially as a way to get my development team through the misery of all the pandemic stuff that we were going through. And then I more formalized my studies. I did a whole lot of journaling and writing and studying informally through the pandemic. And then I studied to become a health and wellness and mental fitness coach. And now, whilst still developing software, I'm now a year and a bit into mental fitness coaching career.
So
So
that's the
that's
thing about being an entrepreneur. Like, the story is quite similar with a lot of us.
yeah.
Like, you hear the journey changes, like transforms from this particular site to the next phase and follow on through the following phase. But the thing is, for us, it's not just abandoning it completely. It's bringing that experience and that journey and that
Yeah.
knowledge along with us, and actually helping us building, a better, a stronger, a larger business. Or, changing from that solo entrepreneur to the entrepreneur business, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's, over that sort of a journey of a business, sort of every sort of 5 or so years, there's a really major setback, something that happens. The travel business, we had the GFC, we had the ash cloud, and then, of course, the pandemic, really big things that can hit you hard. But then there are also those times where opportunities present that are real stepwise changes.
Hmm.
The growth is not linear, as I think you're alluding to, but it is, looking at when things go tough, what can you learn? How can you use that to keep taking you forward and hopefully getting better at what you do, at whatever it is you do, because IT's changed a lot in 25
Oh my
years,
gosh,
never mind just the
absolutely.
business world. So yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
so
part of
like
being an
with
entrepreneur.
with the challenges, like what separates a successful business owner to the common one is the fact that we manage to overcome all these challenges that we face. So like you said, COVID, right? And a lot of us, I think we are hit hard by COVID,
Yeah.
where it's either decision of, okay, what should we do next, right? And it's just that fast action and that fast decision in terms of what next? How can we rectify this? Do we just close and do something else? Maybe we can start up something, which now in this day and age, this is the need. Like the whole concept of AI, the whole concept of
Yeah.
doing a podcast by Zoom, instead of in person, right? And
Yeah.
this whole COVID thing has actually evolved and grown I think our community and this whole world with the possibility of so much more, rather than it feeling like the end of the world, isn't it?
And what you've highlighted there was the entrepreneur takes the mindset of where is the opportunity in this chaos.
Mm.
Whereas I use the word harshly, maybe someone who's victim mentality or not feeling the strength or the confidence might be, oh my God, how do we survive?
Mm.
Which is how do I get back? But someone else looks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, with your background with martial arts, right, with the concept of people in the martial arts realm, the whole concept of the discipline side of things in the martial art. What have you brought from that knowledge of, being part of that martial art into what you're doing now with the coaching and helping people?
Well, it's lots of different parts to that, having done martial arts for nearly 20 years now, and as a fourth dancer, gone from white belt to black belt competitor to I was a national champion for a while, and now a teacher. That's kind of also the journey of having mentors when you start off in business and then later on sharing that back in. One of the interesting things about martial arts and software development is martial arts being Japanese or Asian in origin, goes right back to Indian roots, depending on which lineage you look at. And it's a lot of Japanese stuff where there's hyaku renji toku, which is a saying, training a lot will become your treasure. Now, in agile software development methodology, that means keep doing the work and keep doing things that work.
Mm.
There is also another one, Shu Ha Ri, which is used in agile software development and business development, which is learn, grow, and transcend, or learn the rules, hear the rules, learn the rules, break the rules when you understand things enough to make them work for yourself. But I think the biggest one that I say to people now in the mental fitness realm is growing a business is a long journey, and we have to sustain our body, mind, and our spirit and our vision and our enthusiasm. And now we've got the chance to use the science combined with that discipline to know that it's worth doing the time on ourself away from the business, which will make our business better, is
Mm.
probably the biggest takeaway from all of that.
Okay, so with the generation, especially the younger generation, there is a lot of what's the word, disruption, right? There's a lot of where you get distracted. There's a lot of distractions around us,
Yes.
and like, to grow a business from a solo entrepreneur to an entrepreneur, it's more directing that focus onto one particular task at a time before actually, moving on to the next task,
Yeah.
and then, evolving, right? So with the whole, like, I've never done martial arts before, but from what I've seen and heard, is the whole concept of a martial art is that focus, right? You're so focused in accomplishing something. Let's say it could be whatever martial arts you did. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. One of the things that I found most attractive about martial arts early on is my sensei was, or is still, an upholsterer, and a humble furniture man with his hands, also a very good businessman, an amazing upholsterer, and an amazing teacher. And what I liked is I gave up control to him every time I went to a class, and he would demand better of me. And as a boss of a business, no one would have the courage to say to me, be better. So you're always learning that humility part as well. But I think with the focus part, there was two parts to it. One was particularly getting ready for tournaments where you really have to be switched on for 3 minutes at a time. You can't actually think. You shouldn't think, you should react because your training has prepared you for the moments. And distractions will see a hand drop, you might get hit, and when you get hit, it hurts and everything changes in that moment. So it's really about, for me, eventually getting to winning titles was maintaining absolute intensity and focus for the moments that I needed to, but then in between fights, being able to step back and bring all of that down,
Mm.
cover and repair, and then go again.
So it's heightening your awareness, right?
Awareness, as well as what it did as well, is there's nothing as terrifying as someone a foot taller than you trying to hit you. So then I find myself in business meetings and I'm not distracted by someone getting upset or by someone getting frustrated or presenting damaging data or whatever the thing is. That ability just to stay a lot calmer in the storm of things,
Mm.
which is a bit what comes from staying in the moment, which is what distraction is not. Sticking with the task that we have to do right now so that we are ready for the moments later on as they come along. And I think with martial arts as well, as we walked up through the more challenging tournaments into a national level, is we work on distracting someone else that we're fighting to create an opportunity to score points. And in business, therefore, the lesson should be, well, don't be distracted and you will score more business points. So do what you need to do right now. These sorts of things.
Yeah.
The lessons
So
go on and on and on.
So a solo entrepreneur, I know a lot of my clients, they are all distracted, right? They've got so many brilliant ideas, but they just don't know how to focus
Yeah.
properly. They don't know which one to start with. Like, all these ideas coming to them, it's like they're overwhelmed with all these ideas, right? So what would your advice be in terms of focus? Like, how would you help or advise let's say, a startup business or a solo entrepreneur in terms
Mm.
of focus? Like what kind of technique can you suggest to help them focus in what they really need to do?
Certainly. I'll start with, don't try and quell the creativity when it's bubbling forward, though. It's capturing that creativity in a way that allows it to generate the next lot of ideas. But then the discipline around it comes by the planning, which is as simple as learning the skills of planning tomorrow, today. And then when you get to tomorrow, being ready to do that thing that needs to be done to
Mm.
keep stepping forward, because the ideas are worth nothing until they are acted upon. And then to make a business out of them, that is a lot of action done sequentially in order to build things, no matter how fast a business seems to grow.
Mm.
So
But
my
like
advice is really learning to
for
plan.
a successful martial art, in competitions, like from what you're telling me is that you said you are, completely in submission with your sensei, right?
Mm,
Which means that you listen to whatever he tells you. And it's the same concept with coaching, where you get
yeah.
someone who is a leader who knows their stuff. So it's committing to somebody you respect and listening to what they have to say in order to get the success, right?
100%. And I think a sensei, like a coach, just wants the best for you.
Absolutely.
They don't have an altruistic motive apart from they see something in you, or they know what you need to do next to make that big step up.
So here is something curious. How tough was your sensei on you?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was 34 when I started, and
Uh-huh.
he was. I trained really hard, and I continually, indirectly gave him permission, pushed me. But yeah, tough, and we loved it like that. That's what we went for. We're really good friends, and it didn't mean there wasn't funny conversations afterwards. But he would sort of say, "You can do better.
Mm,
Okay, one more minute. Fight the big guy. Go
mm.
again, go again. And I loved it. Because that's where the growth is. So.
Were there times where you felt like giving up?
Yeah, I had not when I felt like giving up, but I thought there were times when I thought injury was going to ruin things. Was told I needed a hip replacement and statistically did. And that was just before I was getting ready to do my third Dan after 10 years. And it just looked really grim. And my physio said it'll take you 6 months with no guarantees that you might not make this through. So we might get 6 months in and you're great, or you might get a month in and your hip falls apart. And we did the 5-month program. It was great. And I realized only a month before my third Dan to become a sensei that I would actually now physically be able to get through the grading. And then the week before, we were fighting just in the last of the fights to really be tuned. And someone hit me so hard in a sparring match that it fractured my eyeball. But we didn't, not my eyeball, my orbital, which is the bone that keeps the eye in place. We didn't know it at the time. And what happened is I sneezed. The air from my sneeze went through the crack and blew my eye up, which made it look like I was having a brain hemorrhage in front of
Oh,
everyone at the dojo.
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty full on.
Holy
And then they
moly.
said, so you can't do any physical exercise for 6 weeks. And sort of, yeah, look, I'm doing this thing next week, so we'll find a way.
Yeah.
Um, and then,
Wow.
and yeah, so there were a number of times like that. And then the fight, the national title that I won, the second fight I fought a really, really big kicks boxer. And he laid a very, very heavy kick that had either fractured all of my ribs or it just winded me so bad that I was crippled on the ground. And as I was going through the air, it was like, I've got to get up. And then on the ground, as I
Mm,
was being counted out. And in that moment was really a really crystal clear moment of if you don't stand up, it's all
mm.
to waste. So I stood up, and as you do, you go and breathed fine, went on and kept going. So yeah, that definitely times, definitely times.
It
And
felt really
sometimes it's
difficult.
inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you do have injuries that stop or mentally, or you lose your passion.
Yeah.
But yeah, you find a way. And it's an entrepreneurial mindset. It's just
Mm.
not giving in. It's just there is a way out of this if I look for it.
Absolutely. So like back in the day in my musician, being a musician, I remember it's when I was studying, and I realized or discovered that I have rheumatoid arthritis, so it's inherited. And as a piano player, like I loved practicing, I loved playing. But the thing is, the moment I stopped was when the pain just rushes through. And I
Yes.
was at that particular time on my last year in uni. And
Yeah.
the doctors were like, oh, take a break. And like that devastated me because
Mm.
it was all that I knew to do was to be a piano performer, and that was it.
Yeah.
But I went to my piano teacher, my piano tutor. And I was eyeballing. I was like, I don't know what to do. At that particular time, you just felt like giving up. After I slept on it, I decided, okay, maybe I should divert into being a teacher instead. And it's that decision, isn't it? It's like, what do you do next? So I became a teacher. And then through that journey, is like, okay, what next? Now that I can do the teaching, I've challenged myself. How can I level up into something more like bigger, right? So I
Mm.
think in life, in business, it's the same thing where when we face challenges, whether or not we have that supportive group, whether or not it's your coach, whether or not it's your
Yeah.
sensei, whether or not it's people, with the same mindset, right? Your accountability, partners and things like that, where they can help you grow, they can help you get back on track.
Mm.
But I guess it's like, as we know, it's up to the person themselves to make the decision in terms of
Yes.
whether or not they want to follow through that path and continue, hitting against the wall, or find something else that would probably be something better for the future.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you're talking about personal succession planning, but it's
Mm,
really hard when we're younger because we still can't get to grips with we're going to die one day. So we're not very good when we're younger, acknowledging that time will pass and things will change. We can't imagine them being different from where they are. But of course, we can't perform at a physical or a mental, sustain it in a certain field forever because we'll either get bored, other things come along, or as you said, a great natural progression in anything is to be good enough at it to be able to teach it and bring that
mm.
same joy to other people. But that also means acknowledging, your own journey is changing path again, which is hard if you love what you're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
So with being upset, it's okay to be upset, but the thing is, how quickly can you switch, isn't it? Because it's human, right? That's how emotions are. It's part of being human. But how would you advise people to have that quick switch?
Certainly, there's a great, first of all, a stoic philosophy around this, which kind of says, well, when you have a great success, enjoy it, then get back to work.
Mm,
Don't spend ages, celebrating a success, because when things go bad, you will probably spend as long whinging about the loss and the failure and being caught in that sorrow. And the brutality of it is the time between when the thing happens and you start working again is kind of dead time.
mm,
Yeah, it's necessary, but the way to shorten that time frame is through building mostly business resilience practices and personal resilience practices, toughening up for the fact that these things may happen and maybe having a plan B ready to go, not catastrophizing thought processes, but okay, you know, if you're running a computer system, you don't just store your code that you've developed on one machine, you back it up in case that machine dies. And the same way with business, well, what if this happens? Oh, well, this is what I will do. At least if you've had the thought, if the drama happens, you know what you've got to do rather than being caught in the tailspin. And I think similarly to you were saying, going from the piano player to the piano teacher, when you get used to understanding that change is quite normal and you will continually pivot through your career, I think it's one of the skills that allows us to go, okay, well, so now is probably a pivot. Let's look for it.
mm.
And it's practicing, I think, and I think you have to go through a few and survive a few really to understand it, and to prepare for it.
Absolutely. Like, how when we watched cartoon back in the day, going back to the
I
day,
did, I
we used
did.
to have like this devil on one shoulder and the angel on one shoulder,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
one telling you not, things of what you shouldn't do, and the
yeah.
other one is like encouraging you to, persist, be strong, you got this. So I guess like in this realm, you hear more of the devil speaking, right? In terms of you can't do this, you're a failure, we should just give up, go back to your 9 to 5 job, and all these things. Like people are going to be questioning, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But then I think it's more of opening the other side, like opening your ears to the other side where this is possible. This is just a lesson that you have to learn. This is, failure is the only journey of how you can become stronger and bigger. And, it's a journey that you have to have in order to be
Yeah.
someone greater, isn't it?
100%. Adversity is what builds incredible people. The people we admire in business or sport or life, probably because they overcame great odds with grit and determination and self-belief. They're the ones that we believe in the most. one of my mental fitness guru, good friend Paul Taylor, talks about those people as the gremlin and the sage. And he's to shorten down what he says, it's sort of, okay, so the gremlin is telling you everything that is bad, the slightly crap version of yourself. And he was sort of, Mr. Gremlin, I hear you and I see you, but not today. And that was kind of, that's the lesson of it. But then on the other side, the sage, that best version of yourself. Now that I coach, I talk a lot about that. So that's your vision. So not only be encouraged and remind yourself how good you are, but remind yourself why you need to get back up and do the next
So
thing.
the affirmation really helps, isn't it?
100%. They are so, I used to think it was the biggest waste. I really come around to how powerful it is to hear you say, I'm doing this. I am. Can't do it yet. I am. It's incredibly powerful.
All right, share with us in terms of your daily routine, because before we got on this call, you were like, oh yeah, I have a ice bath and a sauna.
All right. So all the days are ever so slightly different, but the core day mostly starts the night before with a plan. And the plan is working out all the things I've got to do, looking at the schedule, working out how much I can get done. And then I slot my big jobs in first. So when my brain is at its freshest, I slot my big jobs into the early parts of the day, and I leave the administrative, smaller, fragmented tasks towards the end. And of course, it varies. Some days there's lots of meetings, other days none. So I do the planning the night before and then stick to those jobs. Up at 5 or just before, there will be some meditation, affirmation, box breathing. Mostly off to the gym. I might do martial arts, I might go for a run. Then there's sauna, then there's ice bath. And in both of those, a little bit more meditation, affirmation, or reading, or I'll listen to the motivational meditations while I'm sitting in there. The ice bath, and I do both of those, because they're really good for mind, body, and spirit. You have to force yourself into the ice bath.
So
Then
which one
depending on
comes first, the sauna first or the ice bath?
definitely the sauna, because you want to warm up.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And also the part of the ice bath is while you're in it, but then your body has to force itself to get warm again and to get the blood out to those extremities, which is, broadly speaking, part of the benefit that it provides. Then from there's Mondays and Wednesdays I fast, so I don't eat until 2 o'clock on those days. Normally the mornings involve sort of getting my breakfast ready for my daughter, getting her onto her day. And then with my work, I do Pomodoro methods. So Pomodoro, 40 minutes off, sort of something like 40 minutes on, 10 minutes off. And I'll block my tasks into those time frames in between the meetings. The breaks on the good days will involve going out and either exercising or stretching or a bit of yoga, or just standing barefoot in the grass and doing a breathing exercise just to get off the screen, reconnect, and then back in for another cycle of work. When I've got meetings, so much of it is on Zoom. So all of my meetings I do standing up. If the meetings go for a long time, I have the wobble board.
Oh, yes.
So that if I'm getting bored, if a meeting's going a long time or it doesn't really matter, I've got the kettlebell. So the kettlebell is my little thinking toy.
Yeah.
So that, and I don't do it to do necessarily the fitness part, but it just makes a bit of time that if I'm standing here, I might get 100 squats in a Zoom call. Now, not because I'm a fitness freak, but because when we get old, we die from falling over. When we're 60, falling is the 7th most common cause of death. By the time we're 70, it's the 5th. So if you do one-legged squats during your Zoom calls, you probably live longer.
Oh, maybe I should go back to that, because I used to do classical singing. So I've got a diploma in classical singing. And in terms of
what
getting
haven't
yourself,
you done?
I know, right?
Is there anything you haven't yet done, Lorraine?
Hey, that's why I'm a coach, right? I've touched base on all areas. So as a singer, we've learned about balance, right? Because the looser your body is, the more you can sing. So my teacher taught us to, and this is music theater, because I've got a diploma in classical singing, but I've also learned music theater. And my teacher would get me to sit on a yoga ball or a balancing board, because it makes your body more relaxed, which means that you can release more, you can reach the higher notes, you can do more. So I think I better get back on sitting on the yoga ball, because it's good for the posture as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and the little bits of movement re-energize the core, and that it also keeps your blood flowing, which is going to make thought better, more energy, better projection during the calls. So I normally work through about 5. There'll be a dog walk in there somewhere, and I'm normally getting my bed routine underway in between sort of 8:30 and 9 o'clock, depending on what, sort of what the day holds. But yeah, that's the general day. That's the general day.
Wow. Okay, so let's say someone comes to you and they go, "Oh, sorry, I can't do my assignments or the stuff that you told me to do because my kids are sick."
Mhm. Yeah. So my first answer to that is, look, everyday life happens.
Yeah.
We set out often over 12-week courses with our coaching stuff. And in that 12 weeks, you'll be sick, someone will crash into your car, you lose power, there'll be a drama. And sometimes the drama happens and nothing can be done about it, and so be it. What I find though is with the people who are committed as we go along, those people will tell me about the solution they found to get the things done, even though
Mm.
their child was sick. And that
Absolutely.
is the transition that will try and get someone from going, oh, I just didn't feel like doing it today.
Mm.
Well, why not? We work through it and
Mm.
these sort of things happen. Okay, well, what could you do?
Mm.
What could you do that would still be a step forward, even if it's only a millimeter rather than a mile type progress for the day? What can we do that's just one little thing, one little thing?
Mm.
And then, so find a way. And entrepreneurs instinctively will find a way. They don't log a zero. They don't go,
Mm.
oh, not today. They go, oh, maybe not as much today.
Yeah. So all my clients know that I don't take any excuses whatsoever. There are times people don't really know this, but there are times where my dog would have seizures in the middle of the night, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. By the time we leave the hospital, it will be like 6 o'clock, which 5 o'clock, which my alarm rings because I'm up like 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So there are days where I don't sleep at all because I'm dealing with that. And the thing is, the way that I look at life is that the world time doesn't stop for you. Time doesn't stop for you for, so it's more of figuring it out. Like how can I still function in a day even though I'm feeling crook? How can I function in a
Yeah.
day when I have to deal with, let's say, sick kids and work and problem that I have to deal with now and all these things. Like your kids gonna be sleeping. So there's time when your kids are sleeping where you can do some sort of planning or thinking, isn't it? So
Yeah.
there's a way around. But for a human being, I know that it's normal to come up with excuses, like that automatic response, isn't it? It's more of beating
Yeah.
that automatic response, like, okay, stop it right now. Let's just think it in a different way where
Yeah.
how can I be successful? What are the steps to being successful?
Mm. Yeah, we talk about, the Stoics would say you can't control what happens, but you can control your reaction to it.
Yeah.
And in Quality Minds, we've got a saying, you can't control your first thought, but you do get to choose your second thought.
Mm,
I'm going to give up. No, I'm not.
mm,
That's the second thought. I'll find a way.
mm,
And it's winning the little battles. I think when the really hard stuff we've got to do are often won in sort of like 15-second bursts. The moment we decide we've got a reason that is strong enough to push through the tiredness or feeling horrible, traveling to India and having the inevitable Delhi belly and needing to go to meetings, it's sort of, oh, I've not slept and I'm horrible, but I flew here for this. So I'm going to
yes.
find a way, these sorts of things, you just have to face those moments and give them a try. And then if
Mm,
you do, wow, the strength you develop is enormous.
absolutely. So what are two advice you would give, let's say, a solo entrepreneur, someone that is ready to start their journey into being an entrepreneur and growing their business?
In terms of simple advice is understanding the real importance about planning the work, just as I touched on before, in
Mm,
terms of planning, not just the day, the night before, but sitting down on a Sunday and looking at the week, and then periodically sitting down and looking at the few months ahead, just to have a sense of what your time looks like and what is realistic, what can be shifted around. But also then in that planning, applying that same planning to life and to ourselves. Because at the core of our business success is our own human and personal success, that it is a long journey. So we've really got to build ourselves physically, mentally, whether it's spiritually in a religious sense or spiritually in a vision and a self-empowering sense from inside or a connection, but understanding that the balance part is actually true.
mm,
There's no point ending up with $1 billion and then dying still in the office. In the same way, you don't want to spend all your day being lazy and getting nothing done, but it's finding the way to enjoy that ride. And that comes from an agile life where you plan all the things in life that will sustain you through 20 years, because that's success for most people. It's over that sort of period of time. It might come at 5 years,
Mm,
but to sustain and to really get the great benefits out of success, not just the financial, but flying business class, going to nice places, meeting really amazing people, that all takes time. So that's the first part. Learn to plan life like you would do a great project. My third one, and I think this is my own original thought, but I've always felt that successful business came with three tiers to it. The first one was when you're a solopreneur, being really good at that thing, learning to be good at the skill around which you are going to grow your business. So whether you are a music teacher, a sports teacher, a software developer, what it is, you've got to be good at that. But then to grow, the second tier comes in, which you've got to manage other people who are doing that for you, leveraging off them, providing them work and growing the business. And that's good. You go from solopreneur to entrepreneur and it gets really, really busy. So then the third tier is you've got to make it work for you.
mm,
So a lot of people work in travel, not for the great salary, but they get to go to amazing places because for them, that fills them with joy and energy, and that's enriching for them. And they'll go without a BMW because they can go and do lots and lots and lots of travel. For some people, it means they get great technology or great fitness gear, or they get to do a job they absolutely love, or maybe that job crosses over and enriches their personal life somewhere. And so I think it's having the skill, managing others doing it. And then the third tier is finding the ways to really make it work for you, where you really get the joy out of it.
absolutely. Wow, thanks for that.
Pleasure.
All right. All right. If you really enjoyed this, I will put some links on the description below. Follow Mark, like him on social media, and if you want to check out what else he's done, you are all by all means, most welcome to, because I think he's got some interesting things on Facebook and Instagram. If you like this episode, please do share it. But other than that, I'll see you guys all in the next show. And thank you, Mark, for joining me on today's episode.
Thank you for having me along, Lorraine. It's great fun.